want to save it for when everyone gets here. But I'm glad you made it, Patrick.
Well, I appreciate the invite.
It just feels so good to have customers. You can tell probably my personality a little bit. It just feels good. I can be like, you. Dave, good to meet you, or good to see you again. Again, I will say I will take some liberties with this group because I feel like I know you all individually, and the crazy that might be me, between all of you, you have that in common. So I think I can get away with a lot today. This is a very exciting moment, but again, I'm going to try to wait for everybody. There's Merrick. Welcome, Merrick.
Well, hello.
Your best friend, Luann, is here.
Oh, absolutely. My bestie.
We're waiting for, obviously, the guest of honor, Daniel Rust, my
we love
longtime
Daniel.
friend, your co-founder, your chief architect, I guess mine. Probably one thing that we'll do, again, we're still waiting for a couple of people, obviously, but one thing we'll do in an effort to get more to the meat of this whole thing, right? Like, what did we actually do? What do you have access to? Should you want it? I'll do the intros for everybody based on what I know about them. And hopefully that connects you all. Or I just totally blow it and it's like embarrassing as hell. Nick, God, thank you for making it.
There's Daniel.
Ladies and gentlemen, our guest of honor. Again, all of you would be our guests of honor, I guess, in theory. Our featured speaker, Daniel Rust. We're not starting yet, Daniel.
Okay.
Yep. We're waiting for a couple of people. Most of you are in franchise. Nick is Honest One, CTO in the automotive. Dave is 7 brands, everything from Alpha Graphics to PostNet, World Options. Again, Fortidia is the new kind of holding company name for all the brands. I think he runs on the tech side in terms of leadership. Patrick is the main marketing person over at Zoom Drain. Merrick Lee, director of marketing over at Save-A-Tree, private equity backed, which is how he met Luann, who went to private equity from Save-A-Tree, a master in everything from roll-ups to the consulting of what a marketing stack should look like. And in theory, one of Merrick's mentors. Tej, the CTO of Authority Brands. And again, like I said, I am taking a little bit of liberty with this because I think I've met you all and you've seen my personality, so I get to feel a little bit more comfortable. Like for me, this is like Breakfast Club coming together. For all of you, you're like, wait, who is everybody? But I feel like I know you all, so you guys should all know each other. And like I said, in some ways, this is 15 years in the making. We just never had customers directly. We were so behind the scenes for so long. Daniel and I are co-CEOs, co-founder of this thing. Daniel was always the product visionary of this whole thing. And to be able to show you a lot of what had been innovated on prior to us even going direct to any of you. Also to now have customers direct and being able to innovate on a product and not being told to essentially shut up just feels so liberating. So you're seeing me more or less like exploding with that excitement of like, oh my God, you guys are going to crush. This is the stuff we've been wanting to tell you for years. But again, what I've learned in all those years is that me saying that is like, yeah, Mark, we like want to believe you, but like, can we just hear it from Daniel? Because of course you're going to say that. Again, we have home services, automotive. What collection of companies would you call you, Dave?
Yeah, so the majority of our franchise brands are in the pack and ship industry, and then Dave for about 2 Alpha Graphics and Multi-Copy in the Netherlands. They're commercial printing.
Again, what we hope to build here at DevHub is obviously for you all too, in the sense of like actually building a community of what we call power users, right? Who like understand like, oh, this is the tech. Oh, cool. And then again, like, this is Adam Price, by the way. He's leading our customer success over here at DevHub. What him and I have been fortunate to be a part of these last few weeks, but really for me, the last almost 18 years come September, has been the continuous improvement to the platform. So every Friday we meet as a company, or basically every Friday as a company, and Daniel and team will go over a new feature release. And a lot of those feature releases come from you all. Stuff that you want to see in the platform in terms of managing multi-sites, multi-locations easier. Yeah, you get to see a decent culmination of all that. Freddie, I like that mustache grew in a little bit more, so me and you can hang out.
I love that.
Freddie runs SEO at Authority Brands.
That's about it. That's all there is to it.
Honestly, I was contemplating, do I go over everybody's stuff again? We'll give it like one more minute, then I'll shut up and I'll turn it all over to Daniel. But essentially, Freddie, you have a lot of your peers here. Again, we're trying to build a community of what we call power users of DevHub now that we have a product that you all are using. And so again, I hope beyond this call that like you guys connect with each other. I know like the Intel quote is like only the paranoid survive, but I always just felt like there's just so much business out there for everybody. We're going to be fine. You know, again, it's better to have your peers. And again, if we can rally around the product, that's great. Fun human fact is Daniel's having a kid in the next 48 hours. All week I was just sweating this meeting. So I'm like, God, please don't let it happen earlier than today.
If Daniel drops out, we know where he's going.
Call.
Hey, congrats, Daniel.
Yeah, congrats.
All right, let's roll.
Sounds good. Cool.
You all are part of something I think will become very, very special as DevHub grows. We're not in this business to build something and flip it. The moment of the business that we're in right now is this inflection point of us, one, having customers finally for over a year now, and then also us figuring out, okay, like what is the messaging that gets people to understand this is more than just websites. And, a lot of you, without me getting emotional, took a chance on us. And so for that, I just wanted to say thank you. To say that we've been around for 15 plus years before any of you ever even heard of our name. And then you being like, well, can you show us a customer? And then you not being able to talk to the customer. Well, we've done 290 launches, it's like, but can we talk to one of them? And we couldn't actually point you to anyone to talk to. But now, whether it's Dave or Merrick and Freddie meeting each other on the SEO front, whatnot, it's like you guys now have each other. And this is that community of leaders. And we do consider you leaders in your field. And so again, one, you took a chance on us, but two, like there was something in you that recognized that, oh, wow, this is different than maybe what I heard before. Most of you are running websites for your franchisees and or branches. If they're not franchisees, mainly that's a Merrick thing, but I guess a couple of the Dave's brands. And then again, part of the story that we were selling was, from us being a white label provider and seeing how the people we were white labeling to kind of discounted sites is just another checkbox, and us coming to you saying websites are actually the most important thing. And you guys believing in that story and taking a chance on us. Again, huge thank you to you. A lot of the innovation that you will start to see at DevHub, or hopefully have seen at DevHub, comes from what Daniel has affectionately called our customer feedback loop. At one point, I think it was called our customer innovation loop, which is, again, it's like, what are you seeing? Like, how can you manage sites easier at scale, especially multi-location sites? Multi-site is one thing, but multi-location is the differentiator of DevHub. And so these next few months, and I think next 14 months, I think Daniel and I have said is really an important time in terms of, again, what's happening on the AI front. And for DevHub to have been innovating all these years and having you all on the platform has just been, honestly, everyone always tells me, like, what's the most miserable job you ever had? And I say the 15 years at DevHub before these last two, because it was just brutal. But enough with that. Again, last thank you to you. And I will turn it over to my longtime friend, business partner since I was 17, and your chief architect, Daniel Rust.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. So this is like a brand new thing that we kind of rolled out recently. I wanted to walk through basically some new initial version of AI connectivity to DevHub that we feel is a good entry point for helping our brands interface with DevHub and connect tools and systems. All right, we'll go over a couple things. So I'll just kind of introduce the concept here of what we set up and what it's used for, and like as far as the industry goes for AI, the connector. Then I'll talk about our specific implementation, and then I'll walk through like a quick demo where we can play around. I can show it to you, and then we'll talk about like future state of where I believe it's going, one for our piece, but also just the industry as well. It's basically called a Model Context Protocol. It's basically a new standard that came out end of last year, but kind of started to pick up steam in the last couple of months here. But it's basically a standard that was developed by Anthropic behind Claude AI. But basically it's a standard way that LLM systems can interface with essentially tools. So these can be tools that are like, that the AI can understand how to use, has context of like the inputs and outputs of what should go in and out. And then it leverages all the things that you guys have seen interfacing with AI tools to, basically have it, contextually be able to understand what you're asking it to do and be flexible on those inputs and outputs so that it can understand, okay, I have these tools, this is what the user is trying to accomplish, and this is how I'm going to do it. So this protocol currently is really only supported on installed LLM clients. So these are things you're installing on your desktop system, and does require a bit of like technical setup on your system to have these run since they're so new. But currently it's supported under Claude Desktop, Cursor, which is another AI coding tool, as well as many like kind of agent integration systems for automations. And then as far as future adoption, OpenAI basically just said that they are going to also adopt this standard as well over the next coming months. So it's moving quickly and getting picked up by a lot. But what this allows us to do is build like essentially one set of tools that can be leveraged across all AI systems. So new ones that haven't been invented yet and existing ones that start to build ecosystems. So this kind of initial version was kind of like a proof of concept of interfacing with DevHub. So it allows these tools to directly interact with DevHub over our APIs and our connections. So this simple first example is it can do things like read all your locations that are in DevHub. It can edit things like hours of operations. In this case, for the DevHub one, it's basically reading locations, editing hours of operation. It can read your blog posts that are inside of DevHub, and you can actually edit them and post them into DevHub in an automated way. And then, just finding locations and sites just naturally from sort of contextual searches. So now this is the DevHub specific implementation, but workflows could be, again, you can have multiple of these tool sets installed for other platforms. So that's the connectivity where you can do simple things. Hey, I'm only going to use a tool for DevHub, but it can also be used to connect things, like use this info from DevHub to put it in here, or vice versa, take this info from another system and put it into DevHub, but all through just like a natural sort of a conversation with the LLM to automate things effectively. So these are kind of like just some simple use cases, these first ones, and we'll talk about the future state of this. And these are ones I'll walk through here just to give you guys a high level example of how it works. This is the Claude desktop client. Again, similar sort of basic interface here, but basically you can do things like, can you get hours of operation, for example? And if I hover over here, I have the, let's see.
This happened in the company-wide one too. It's a classic demo moment where it doesn't work.
These are all the tools that are exposed. This little toolkit here. This is what's exposed for the MCP that I have installed. These are all the DevHub tools. So ChatGPT currently doesn't support MCP. They basically just announced they're going to adopt the standard over the next coming months. You can technically integrate it if you're doing a custom GPT, because you can interface with really any tool since you're integrating it. So can you get applications? Cool. So basically the way this works is it has these tools and it's going to ask you, like, are you going to use the tool? You can set your preferences on, hey, should I ask you or do I trust the tool? Right now it's basically in prompt mode. So like it'll ask you at least one time for every tool that it's going to play with. So what it first did is basically it's going to grab a bunch of context from DevHub so that it knows what to do. It'll actually like grab, right now it has grabbed context of, okay, here's all my projects and here's all my locations. And then it pulled the first one here. And FYI, Nick, we are using Honest One staging data here, as you guys have good like hours of operation data and some key things here. So this one pulled basically and showing us a quick one around the Anoka location. You can also have it pull additional location information. So I pop over to Chrome real quick. So this is like the DevHub platform, obviously here. These are the different sites in the Honest One and all of their locations. So you can, it now has context of all these, all the locations in DevHub. So you could be like, what are the...
And then one obvious thing too is like, I believe, Dana, you said Nick, Merrick, or I guess Honest One, Save-A-Tree, and I believe AB all have staging environments.
Yeah.
Should they want to like take this to the next level and actually play with this before deciding to roll it out? Like you will have that ability, or you have that ability today.
Yeah, we have a staging environment basically like where we can play with data and you can interface with data without affecting your production environment. So it's like a testing base is a good place to just play around because it's not going to affect anything on the production side. But you'll see basically really it has the info around the location that gets pulled back. So we're giving it like structured information, but then it knows how to interpret that information as it comes out. So then it can format it in any way that it decides is most relevant to the user as far as how it presents data back. We're just giving it like the underlying data and like the best practices of what this data represents. So we're telling it in like simple terms of like, you want to do this, then here's the best practice. This is the way the data should look at the end of the day, but then it gets to interpret how it wants to use the tools. So we can do things like, can you update hours for p.m. to 5 p.m. location here. Maybe we'll do Spring Hill. So I'm just kind of asking it, like, again, the form of the question can be in any form, and it interprets what you're trying to do here. So I just told it just update, Monday and Tuesday to 2 to 5. And then again, it has context of like the overall conversation. So you can also say, could you, do this? Just pick another random one here, maybe Littleton.
It's really cool. Really cool.
Yeah, so it has a lot of, basically we're giving it as much context as we can. There's when we build these tools, we want to make sure that there's a context cap that you can hit with AI tools, where you give it too much information, it doesn't basically tails out, like it can't use all the context. So you want to give it limited context, just enough for the action that you're trying to get it to do.
Daniel, is this location by location?
So you can tell it to do bulk actions too. So like if you wanted to say like update all, again, just any sort of concept, but you could be like update all Texas locations to be closed on Friday, or regional information. It has the underlying location information. It has things like latitude and longitude of the location, like geographic information, and really any data that we exposed as far as the context of how we classify the locations. So you could have like a regional field or something like that as a denote that you could expose back.
One question, Daniel, is it possible to have it know to do draft versus publish?
Yeah, so basically this current one, it automatically publishes the posts, which I'll show you. But effectively you can tell it to have like a default. And again, this comes into how we prompt the tool, but it could have a default of being unpublished, like basically push it in as unpublished, and then you could tell it to publish those actions that we wanted. And we kind of boil it down to actions. So it's not even like API endpoints. It's really like workflows that we're telling it like do this in different ways, and that it has context of best practices.
Daniel, one piece I might have missed it and you were demoing this is widget go on the website so the user doesn't have to browse the website, or is this a feature of the CMS tool?
Yeah, it's more for like internal teams to interface with DevHub instead of logging into DevHub, or to basically operationalize like connecting multiple systems. So this would be like not for the end user per se, it's for the brand users. So you guys could leverage essentially DevHub for one, interfacing with DevHub, doing things with DevHub data in and out. But also you can effectively, with MCPs being built out, you might have one for say HubSpot. That's where you get to interconnect the data, where you could be like, I want to take lead information from HubSpot and from DevHub, and then the LLM can interface with both sets of data to do things. A simple example, which I'll walk through, I'm going to attach a document for a blog post, but you could also be like, hey, could you get this post from my Google Drive, or could you grab it from here and then put it into DevHub? As long as you have those connectors tied together in the form of MCPs. They're essentially tool sets. There might be a tool set to get a document from Google Drive and then post it to DevHub. So,
but also the same structured data is being fed to the MLMs via DevHub, so that the consumer looking for hours or related to brands that are obviously on DevHub be able to pull in the information.
and that's the publicly exposed information that we have as far as schema and things that the LLMs can interface with. But if you were building, say, a chatbot, or you're leveraging a chatbot system, as long as they have MCP support, those agent systems could install the DevHub one, give it the right credentials, and then it has access to all the information so that you could ask that bot, what are the hours for this location, things like that, without you needing to integrate effectively, because it's just a tool that the agent can use.
Got it. So you're exposing those functions.
Yeah.
Like the AI function.
Very simplistic form. They're a function where they're very verbose on like what are the inputs and outputs and what they're supposed to do with them. Then the LLM has a context of how to use these tools, and it gets to decide when I need to do a certain thing to get the info I need.
I'm going to caveat this next question with, I don't know shit about AI. I just hear about it on YouTube. So I'm going to say words that I don't fully understand. Are you gating this with a RAG?
No, basically all these tools exist with our existing API. So anything you do in DevHub is an API essentially, and we're wrapping those workflows around it.
You're basically getting DevHub CMS prep for agentic AI use.
Yeah.
Now I'm with you.
Yeah, you could do these things. If you were building a custom GPT agent, you could integrate with DevHub because you're writing code to do this. The MCP essentially opens it up where you don't need to write code anymore. You just connect the systems, and the possibilities become endless of how you connect those tools in your architecture. The fact that there's a standard now is the main driver of this, because now future AI systems, any like automated agent systems, if they pick up this standard, have access to all these MCP tools that can connect everything together. And I'll talk about the future state a little bit, because right now you do have to install this. I have to install basically the MCP into my system to do these things right now. You can't go to chatgpt.com and use it right now, but that would be the future. So this would be like the hours. Again, it's kind of fun to just mess around and see what sort of stuff you can do. Like, again, bulk updates. Claude's not the best for this, but I'll show it in Cursor. But you can also use it to generate things like export data in certain formats, things like that, just by asking it to do it. So the next one I was going to walk through real quick. And again, any of these sort of AI systems, you want to like have basically context. Like you wouldn't want to keep the same thread, the same chat open for an unrelated task. And that's just so that you're not like giving it too much information. Usually it's better to start a new chat. So I'm going to create one here. So blog to and when you ask it questions, it basically knows how it's supposed to post a blog to DevHub. So if it doesn't have enough information, it asks the user around that. In this case, we can like give it a lot of different ways to get to the site that we want to post this blog to post to. Let me grab another random location here. We'll grab a note guy here. Yeah.
Fun story I learned about Zoom Drain yesterday on Patrick's site. One of their most trafficked blog posts is about should you flush cat poop. Again, knowing that generates a lot of traffic is like, how do you repurpose that at the local level? You can do that.
All right, cool.
Cannot flush cat poop.
Oh,
It'll prompt the user for any context that it needs to continue its path. I told it, post it to the Anoka location. It then knows like, okay, I have a tool that can get me all the locations, and those locations have sites associated. So it grabbed all that context, pulled it in. Now it knows where this blog post is supposed to go. You could also give it another thing. If you already knew which site URL it was supposed to go to, you could just paste that and then it could figure it out. There's a lot of pathways for it to decide like what context it needs. So now it has all the information it needs to write a blog post. So it could actually write it for you. Like again, generate some content, random content for you. Or again, you can do things like attach a file. So I'm just going to attach this, just an export from Google Doc with a draft blog post here. And again, we give it context of like, okay, how are you supposed to form this blog post so that it goes into DevHub in a clean way, that it's not going to be like all mangled or with weird formatting or things like that. That it can basically follow our best practices on like headings and links and things like that. We give it all that context. So you simply just attach a doc. You could attach multiple. You could post, hey, I had these 10 draft blog posts and I want to just post them all. And then you can basically, again, tell it what to do. So it'll be like post. So now it'll, again, generate. The doc is a Word export doc, but it's going to convert it into HTML for us with all the proper headings and all the things that we want it to do. If there was links in it, things like that, it would pick those up and make those anchor links and all that. One thing with Claude specifically is when it's like thinking, you'll see it's like, it's just processing here as it generates, So now is going to call a post, another tool of ours, which is again, create a blog post, which takes some information here. So now it's been created and now it has a new post ID. And if I go back to the dashboard here, I should be able to browse to this. And if I go to blogs, so now we see our blog here that's now showed up in DevHub. So you'll see this is the content that it pulled in. This is just like a blog post that we recently posted to DevHub. It has like just examples of how to use one of our features called Content Database with some examples of like uses. So you'll see there's like 9 different examples, like the usage of this thing. It can manipulate content as well. So if you were like, can you add a 10th example about house painting franchise that can paint swatch colors. I obviously know about what this blog post has, so now it's going to grab the post in case it's changed recently, and then it can update it, and it's going to just come up with something for us, just like AI is great at least doing. All I said is, hey, add a 10th example around how a house painting franchise could manage paint swatch colors across their locations. So now it's going to enumerate and kind of work through this post it's going to manipulate, and then it's going to update it on DevHub.
Quick question, Daniel. As you're doing this, my brain is spinning quite a bit.
Mhm.
And so, I know you mentioned earlier that you guys have built an API that's very open and allows for other integrations to be part of it. And so as I'm looking at this and I'm just thinking to myself, okay, if I have this auto care situation, let's say there's a recall on a car in Anoka, would this possibly be in a position where you could write the blog post, but then also tell it, can you email all of the customers in Anoka about this recall that we just had, and just click the button and then it can write or reference the blog post.
Yeah, the URL of the post.
Go to your email provider, whatever that might be, use some sort of template and then actually pull a list and then email, everyone that blog post that's there. Cause that's kind of in my head, I'm just thinking just to be like, speed to lead in a way. So, there's a recall, there's a new thing in a new steering wheel that you should have on your car. You can kind of just, have it, the actual content created here on that page, but then more importantly, get it to the right audience.
Yeah. So obviously there's a lot of value with just using the DevHub MCP as one solo. But once you can connect multiple where they can have context of each other, that's where it's really powerful, because you could have it post the post, it knows where it is, and then you could have it, send a message out via like an email system. Again, each of those systems has to have MCP. So there are a couple of sites that are tracking these, but there's already about like 2,500 different MCPs for various services like Shopify, all these different ones that are rolling out that can allow you to connect systems.
Wow. Well, this is great. In my perspective, not to be selfish, but the way I see this working for us very well is there's a new insect in town that's destroying things. And we write some content, which we will definitely do, write a page, right? But what good is the page if no one's going to it, right? It's not going to rank right away. But then again, we do have pages that have ranked very quickly with DevHub, shout out Mark and Daniel and team. But when it comes to like an insect or there's a new tree disease or something like that, I think seeing something like this is powerful to me, because I know that if I have our email service or even text messaging service hooked up to this, like through Twilio, because we do have an instance of Twilio, I potentially, depending on how we decide to use our customer data, can send out a message, whether if it's an email, text message, or both, that just lets them know, hey, have you seen this, in this part of town? And I think as I'm looking at this, I'm just trying to concept how that would look or how that would, operate. But maybe this, in the beginning, there might be another easy way to do that. And so, we'll have a separate conversation of like, what does our database need to do in order to feed that type of information in to make it work? But yeah, I'm just thinking selfishly, we get an insect or a tree disease, how do we get that to the customer right away? Right in the instant that it's happening, because more than likely we should be the ones that tell them before they hear about it on the television. And so I'll leave it there.
Merrick, what I would say is dream responsibly. So, listen to Daniel. Again, I'm not the expert, but it seems like, this is more of exposing a bunch of ways to make integrations easier and ready for AI. What you're saying, it's probably possible today out of the box with other tools, right? What you need is a nudging mechanism that sort of gets triggered based on, like, actually your use case. I mean, it's a beautiful use case. I think in your industry, it makes a lot of sense. And an update comes in, you fire a alert. It's more like a nudge-based campaign mechanism where AI could be very useful, is like prepping for that content that's going to go into the email. That's what it comes to my mind. Anyhow, Danny, you should answer the question. But I would say dream responsibly with this thing.
I think it's really the ease of, like, again, those specific scenarios that you didn't already pre-build. Like, you could definitely build like this scenario if you were integrating DevHub and integrating the email provider. But I think it's the openness where you don't need to like have the specific workflow already built that you can like, execute it. And that's where the AI can help add context with it and have those systems connected. Going over to the post here, I just told it to update it. So now, if I pop back into DevHub, I'll just refresh here. And now I have like this new 10th section that it decided to write. I could just edit it, and it can manipulate the post inline as well. It can add content and format the post and make, changes to content. So it's not like a one-time post and then you go edit in DevHub. You can continue to massage content. On that subject around like, updates, other things that we're plugging in is obviously any of those sort of bulk posting. If you needed to put an alert banner on a certain region because of weather incidents, those are all things that can be, done with this. Once we expose those pieces of context back to the LLM.
And then Daniel, real quick, also, we're talking about content, blogs, hours, but then again, promos in the same way, right? Right, being able to push promos to specific geographies based on, again, whatever's happening in that area that you guys all know better than I do. Trying to wing it right now.
I'd like to hear more about the promo use case. That definitely interests me. So Daniel, what do you have on that?
Yeah, so that's an action that we manage in DevHub right now, make it really easy to push out promos across your locations. Basically, any of those actions you would have done in the DevHub tool that you could then do that to one or multiple locations just by asking AI around which locations that you want to post it out to. The value is really all those things that you can do with DevHub right now, either via our APIs or our dashboard, that you can then do it with any of these agent systems in like plain English. They don't need to know like they need to go to this panel, post this and do this. You can basically just describe what you want it to post and then it knows how to do that on DevHub.
So I'm the newest to this, so feel free to tell me if this is really not where you're headed. I want to understand how it's integrating. So let's talk about the offers piece. You have locations that need more business, right? Different parts of their CRM system, of their other systems will flash red, right? For whatever reason, sales aren't being met. They are typically the ones that get the promo. Are there integration abilities that would help that happen and feed those promos maybe to that staging area? Marketing lead takes a look at them and says, yep, thumbs up. That's who we want to see get that promo. And then the promo lands on location pages. Is that the reality we're talking about here?
Yeah, the context of like your sales information, which locations are not hitting their mark. Either it can be
Or
as simple as
something, not enough appointments, if it's, residential services or whatever. There's some red light flashing. Can the red light feed directly?
Yeah, so you can either do like, so if you were integrated with that system, if that was another MC it had knowledge of, it could grab that information out and then know how, just by simply, here's a list of the locations and their names and that are having problems that are below the mark, that it knows, okay, here's all the sites for DevHub, and it knows which ones to post it to if you say yes. Alternatively, you can give it any context. You could export a list from some system of like, here's the 20 locations, and these are the ones we've approved to push this offer out to. And then you just upload that file to the AI and say, can you post this offer to these locations? And it knows how to go read that file, figure out, okay, it's this location name. This is the location on DevHub. Like it connects the dots for you. You can do those kind of things. Otherwise, it's a matter of a human usually like matching the right information. What's DevHub's ID for whatever location? It removes those barriers.
So it takes a piece out of it. I love the guys dream responsibly, right? I think that I'm going to hang that up on my wall and X out the responsibly. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, got it. So yes, it can do it. It can put it in the staging area and it at least takes a chunk of the work off of it. And it's a reminder, right? I mean, if it's something that gets prompted under certain conditions, it becomes a reminder to keep considering offers for different locations.
Yeah, and then obviously this is like a human using these tools. So I'm like a human using this Claude tool to do this, but with, these sort of agentic systems, you could have basically an agent that's running monitoring for sales problem.
And then it puts it in the staging area, and then somebody still has to go say, yes, thumbs up, put it on, right? For whatever reason, something funky happens, that they've dropped off because, I don't know, the place is on fire and, we can't go throwing an offer there. There's a reason. Okay, great. Thank you.
The key is like once there's a standard develops and these systems that could be autonomous doing things could pick up and have access to DevHub, like knows how to use it, knows how to interface with it.
Cool. Thanks.
And since it's a standard, it's universal across, existing systems of how it's supposed to pull data out and put data in.
Maybe I should have done this for an hour. I did it for 45 minutes. I don't know everyone's time, but can you just go to the future state stuff? And then again, maybe Q&A. I don't know. If you have questions about how to access it, Nick, Merrick, Freddie, how to install it desktop wise. I think we have the documentation around that.
Yeah, so I think I talked about this a good amount, but again, expanding more context to DevHub, all the things you can do in DevHub, if that's posting special offers, alerts, because a lot of these things are specific to not DevHub, but to our customers. So like, hey, we have an alert banner. why does this alert banner exist and what is it used for, that we can expose to the different AI tools. So expanding, our offering for all these different workflows that we feel are valuable for our customers. I see, continuing support for just MCPs in general across all the AI systems. So again, OpenAI recently announced they're going to adopt their competitors' standard, which is like, a good sign in an industry if they're doing that. Continuing there. And then right now you install this on your desktop system to use the tools. But I think quickly I would say probably within the next 3 to 6 months, it's going to be more of like a marketplace where you go into ChatGPT and you install DevHub's MCP. You provide your credentials or even click over for single sign-on, and now it has context immediately so that it's widespread available so that any marketing manager could pick it up. And the context is like, again, the permissions are all the same. So we set permissions that certain people can do only certain things, and that also applies to the tools. So that's where I see it going, is becoming that sort of like plug and play system connector that people can just pull off the shelf. And then as long as, the tools that you're using are also adopting this ecosystem, then they can connect really easily.
How would we connect? Let's say there's an API we want to integrate with, a new API. How would we connect with that?
Yeah, you're picking a new vendor. Like, does that vendor have an MCP that you can one-click install, for example, in a future state? So that would be like the first thing to judge. And then also like any of those connector systems, for example, Zapier just announced an MCP that can connect there, which opens up tons of API integrations. You could use a Zapier connection to like basically expose tools as well. You could say it's a homebrewed API, for example. You would have to effectively like build an MCP wrapper around it to have it accessible. Again, it's not like super hard to do it as long as you have a robust, a decent API that you can wrap around. And it's really about just building that and giving it the context it needs. Because you can't just give it, hey, there's an endpoint for blogs, go do it. You have to tell it best practices and like what the fields mean and things like that.
Yeah.
One question from me is, one thing you guys are really good at, your team is good at, is like modifying things like on a landing page. For example, if we want to change the form to be a certain way, you guys are really good about kind of doing that. Will this also be able to do stuff like that too on the technical side? Or is this kind of more like a content-based workflows?
Yeah, I think we would probably do a separate MCP for those workflows if we were going to get into the design realm, which we're definitely playing with internally as well, just AI tools for our production teams and design teams. But yeah, this one's primarily focused on content management. So I think marketing managers, like standing up a new landing page or editing like which fields are on, like forms, for example, is this form field required? Those are all just native DevHub things that would be considered content management.
Oh, really? So going back to our forum where we have tree service, lawn care, and then, we had that new integration of adding holiday lighting. So you're saying with this, if I wanted to build a brand new landing page experience and I wanted to take off some of the things, I just wanted to say lawn and tech, for example, I can just tell it to do this and it will just make the page for me. Oh,
yeah. There's like the next one is going to be our templated page publishing and management. So that'll be like those actions, like post a new landing page that has tree service, like any of the fields that you're filling out on that inside of DevHub, it can contextually fill those out for you.
Wow. And then I know another thing with, ChatGPT came out with like the image generation and all that. Not saying we would use that, but, I'm also thinking about, okay, if we're making a page and we want to have certain pictures, within the page, especially blog content.
Yeah.
Would this be able to kind of do that? Is that a future state item as well of like, how can we do that?
Yeah, right now, Claude, like we have an actual tool right now that's for image uploading to push it into DevHub's CDN for image hosting, but Claude kind of tanks on it. It basically outputs the image in code right now. So I think it's a Claude limitation right now. Yeah, the concept is there. Yeah, like generate an image and make that the featured image post, or like, again, generate an image. Okay, can you change this and this? And now can you put that on the blog post?
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome.
But yeah, ChatGPT currently has the best image generation engine right there. Once ChatGPT opens this up so you can push it into DevHub, then that connection would be made.
Quick question, Daniel. Some of the content is managed through a site sheet. Would this update the site sheet as well?
I know you guys have been messing around with reading your sheets and things in ChatGPT, but yeah, like it could interface with the sheet as well to update things in the sheet. But all the sheet is a wrapper around our APIs. So the sheet exists, but it just wraps our APIs already. So whatever action, like the data that's in the sheet, you could do with the tool, but we want the sheet to also update, right? We don't want it to like be out of sync. So if it was like data in the sheet, then yeah, it would be, again, there's probably already want to mess around with it yet, but Google Drive MCP, I'm sure exists that you could tell it go edit data in there instead.
Okay.
And then that would feed into DevHub.
Well, thank you, Daniel. This was very exciting. I just want to say, my mind is blown from just thinking about how many different workflows that you're going to save us when it comes to modifying our experience for our customers. So I think that's going to be just phenomenal. I can't wait to show this to our team about all the things that we're going to be able to do, not just on the content generation side, but being able to connect so many things. Because right now we're in a situation where we have Zapier that's been connecting a lot of different systems, across the board. And knowing that we now can use those systems and then in a way have some sort of, MCP here that can have logic to it and actually do stuff with the website and also connect back and forth, read and write. I think this is phenomenal. Thank you. Can't wait to use it. My other question is, when does this come out? I know you're going to say fall, so I'll leave it there, but I'm looking forward to it.
This is actually live. You can install it right now to do the things that I just showed.
Okay.
Again, because of it's new, like you actually have to install something on your computer, unfortunately, right at this moment for it to work. So we can walk you through that if you're curious. And then also, like we mentioned, that our customers have this staging database that exists so that you guys could play around with it without touching production data, like just to go through your workflows before you actually would start using it in production, which is always a good idea to feel it out, see how it does, so it doesn't do something that you don't want it to do. So yeah, it's available right now. Like you could go to some of the docs that we have shared and you could install it right now, as long as you get an API key from us.
Send it.
Yep. And then it auto updates as well. So like if we add more tools, it'll update on your system automatically as well. And it'll just be additional tooling.
Quick question. Where were the docs that you just mentioned?
I think, Mark, we can share them out. I think it's on the invite.
But I don't know, maybe it didn't link in the, oh, it did link. Invite has it, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool.
And again, I'll just tell you, human wise, I got very excited. I was like, I started texting some of you like, oh my God, it's on. Everyone over here is like, calm down. I'm like, I can't, like, I don't know tomorrow's guaranteed for anybody anymore. So I'm like, I got to get these guys on the phone. What happens when they want to use it? It's like, well, they can. But again, that's what Adam's here for on the customer success side. But then additionally, like another layer of, I don't know if you call it support, camaraderie, community, as you're doing the things to just share it with your peers, like, hey, I figured out how to do blank and blank, I don't know. It just gives a little bit more confidence for some of us who are very ambitious. And then others are like, I'm scared to hit go. And then it like rewrites all the sites at one time. But again, luckily you have the staging environment to be able to experiment in and have a gut check on our side. At least we're lucky right now. The group is small enough where if you do need us to be like, hey, did I do it correctly? Like you still can reach somebody at Dev.
What's cool is that we get to like write again in the context things that are destructive. And we basically would tell, hey, you need to prompt, the user has to agree to the action they're taking. The LLM will basically like, have context. I need to like ask Merrick that's asking me to do this to confirm that I should do this because it's destructive, And we just get to give it those kind of pieces of key context of like things that it should be wary of doing as well, which is cool. And then, yeah, the only other demo that I didn't get to is would we go through Cursor, which is more of a programming side of things, but you can do things like exporting your locations to CSVs and using that in more of like a developer environment as well, which is super cool.
Amazing. This is great.
Daniel, have you tried the latest Gemini model? And also, have you tried Claude Code?
Yeah, we use Claude Code for our developer team. Probably like the one that tipped me over the edge on like quality for the AI coding tools.
I was very anti this stuff. I was not anti,
hesitant.
Very hesitant. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it kind of blew my mind. So.
Yeah, that's the one where, like I obviously ever since AI came out in regards to coding, I've used all of them or trialed them all, watched them hallucinate and do crazy and insane things. Claude Code is the first one that felt like, 90% of the time it's on point, which is pretty great. Claude Code also supports MCPs as well. So you can install the DevHub thing there to interface, which is cool. The Gemini model is really great. It can't support the MCPs yet, but again, kind of I think natural evolution of it. But that one is really solid, all fronts, and it's super fast. Like you'll see, like when we were interfacing with Claude, it was again just kind of tanking a little bit as it like wrote blog posts, as it did things. The Gemini model basically it just shows up immediately. You're like, what? I didn't even like, it didn't even hesitate before it outputs something.
Yeah,
For everybody, the Gemini, anybody can go to it and use it for free through the web portal to mess around with. Claude desktop client, again, you can sign up for a free account. You'll hit your number of requests pretty quick. Like you won't be able to do too much until it caps you out. Yeah, Cursor as well as a kind of a trial mode that you can play around with. Yeah, Gemini's one that's new and free, basically, in the Google world. Yeah, they love doing that. Give everything to everybody for free.
I was just going to say real quick, I threw my email in there. Any questions, ideas, responsible dreams, irresponsible dreams? I'm here for it. And we'll make sure that like we can collaborate on some of this stuff, and it'll be really helpful to get your feedback.
Yeah, Adam would be the avenue to get access, getting credentials for our API, anything like that. Go through his team for getting that access.
One day we want intro music. We want the screen, with like the commercial playing. It's like and this is foundational to all of that. Hopefully one day, again, not overhyped. Hopefully, again, enough value in it where it's like, oh yes, it's not just a website. But again, it feels so good. Thank you for you guys for taking a chance on us, Nick, Merrick, Freddie, Tej, who's not here. And maybe the future of Dave and Patrick, but thank you all. Let's connect with Adam. Obviously, you know how to reach me. Any questions? Yeah, feel free to reach out. And thank you for spending this hour with us on April 3rd. Hopefully we tell the story of this for the rest of our lives. But I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Talk soon. Thank you.
thanks guys.
I'll connect you all too.